What if I go through these questions real quick and then y'all ask questions? More questions? Okay. So obviously we've talked about counseling a good bit. So we have been through lots of counseling, and not just professional, like marriage counseling, but we've also done quite a bit of like inner healing, soul work. So I would say for us that it's been very important to do both. So we talked about in the beginning, just how is your soul healthy? So here at Grace they have something that we call listening prayer. That I've been a part of for a long time, and you can even just do something like that, just something where you're keeping your, we all have our life experiences we're bringing into your marriage, so something where you're personally dealing with your own stuff and then professionally dealing with stuff together. So yes, counseling is awesome, we should do it. That was that question, okay. Prioritize relationship in the busyness. How do we do that? We kind of explain that. Rhythms and stuff.
One thing that's been helpful for us that we've grown in the last couple of years that we were pretty bad about early was not looking ahead to the calendar and recognizing, wow, we're going into a really crazy month. We need to get good time together before it starts. We would just our schedule would be crammed full of normal stuff, and then it'd be even more full with a busy month. And then after a couple weeks of that, we're like, the tanks are empty, and we're running on fumes, and that was just never good. So it's been really helpful for us to be able to do better about looking a couple weeks ahead and go, wow, we have a worship school coming up this week, we have an album the next, and we have people coming in from out of town. We need to sneak away and get time together, just the two of us. So even this past week, after somebody's funeral Sunday, I was traveling with my band this weekend. It was a crazy week. It was like, babe, let's sneak out and go to get Mexican. Like, we're gonna get the kids down and we're gonna go to Mexican. And so we're both tired. It
was awful. It was 9:30. I was like, I can't do it.
Because we had a soccer game or something, right?
Yeah.
So one of the boys had a soccer game, one of the other boys had basketball practice. So we had to get them home, homework, showers, fed, in bed, and then it was so tired. It's like 9:30. We're like, place closes at 10. Like, we can make it. And so we just had to do it. We're tired again, not complicated, just hard. But we have to do that. We need that time to connect, pay now, pay later. So that's how I'd encourage.
And there's one question about having different understandings of what like respecting your spouse means, and I'm not exactly sure on this, but for me, how you grew up, like how my mom respected or did not respect my father is just what I thought was normal. So I had no idea when I was being completely disrespectful to Aaron when we were newlyweds. But I think the thing with that is just talking about it. It's communication, right? And it's having grace for the other person. So it took us, me saying a couple of embarrassing things in front of other people about him. I just thought it was funny. I didn't think anything about it. And then him saying, hey, that really, I felt really disrespected when you said that. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't know. But if he had accused me or like, why did you say that? Or, it could have gone very differently. So I think just communicating and talking about the things that, it opened a conversation for us about, well, what, how do you feel about that? Or what did your mom do? Or, what examples did you see set? So again, I don't know. We're far from really knowing the answers, but for us, it just worked to communicate and talk about expectations.
But it also really helps if you're not coming into a conversation already, banged up and bruised and or neglecting your own soul. Like if personally and internally your world is in a pretty good place and there's some marital stuff that needs to be worked out, that is a whole different conversation than when there's marital stuff that needs to be worked out, but your internal world is in disrepair because you haven't taken care of it. You haven't. And a mentor, not really a mentor, he doesn't know me, but a hero of mine, this guy John Ortberg, he's a pastor in he tells a story about how when he and his wife were going through a hard time, he was really busy with writing and preaching and traveling and all this stuff. And they had several little kids. How his wife was always just upset with him. And his thing that he would say, he feels like it was the trump card, was, I'm doing the best that I can. And I've said that. I've actually said that. I'm doing the best that I can. And that's supposed to be the thing that, like, that shuts you up. Because what else can I give except my best? But his wife said, no, you're not. You haven't gotten help. You haven't gotten a spiritual director. You haven't gotten counseling. You're doing the best you can on your own. But you're not doing this wisely. And when I heard him talk about that, I was like, that's really helpful for me. So in terms of how to communicate disagreement without communicating disrespect, I don't know how to do that. We still hurt each other's feelings. We have to work it through. But what really helps is if I'm not in a terrible place internally when we have to go to a difficult place maritally. If I can, again, guys, it's on you to know you. Your internal world, that's on you. And women, that's on you. Your world is your responsibility. And then if we can, that's where that listening prayer, all that stuff is so helpful, because I often don't even know all the places that I'm broken. You don't know what you don't know, and we're so self-deceived in so many ways that we need the light of God to shine into our darkness so that He can show us the places. I mean, it's amazing how many times I use these listening prayer sessions like physical, like I'm supposed to go get a physical every year or whatever at a certain age. I use it like a spiritual, where I just go and I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, let's pray. Let's see what God says. So I have to do that. Otherwise, cars just don't naturally get themselves back into alignment. It just never happens. First, it starts a little vibrating, right? Vibrating, and then you get like a knocking sound, and then it's like really bad, and then you're gonna blow out a tire. Maybe it might be really bad. My personality, my tendency, I think men's tendency could be to go towards passivity if there's something that's starting to surface. Acknowledge it now, deal with it now, or it's going to be a lot harder later. So anything that we can do, though, internally, individually, to be whole, will really help me not to interpret Megan's disagreement with me as disrespect. Sometimes she might be disrespecting me. That's on her. More often than not, though. I'm just wounded, and I haven't let the Lord heal that. It has nothing to do with her. I'm just unhealthy, and I haven't done what I need to do to be healthy. Nothing to do with her. Not her fault. Does that make sense? So I would really challenge you to think through, like, your internal world. How healthy is that? 1 to 10. And if it's down the 2s, 3s, and 4s, then any conversation that comes up in a marriage kind of conversation, it's all a mess down there, and you're going to drag your spouse into all of it. So anything that we can do to tend to our souls, I think, would be really, really helpful.
Yeah, I remember one of our first arguments, for some time in the early years, where I don't know if I said something or did something, and Aaron, either you're trying to be helpful and maybe you tell me how to spell something correctly or something with my language or a word or something. And I was so offended and said, like, why do you think I'm stupid? And he was like, what are you talking about? And it sent me this whole spiral, literally back to 2nd grade, where I didn't make gifted and I thought I was stupid because my sister did. So it had nothing in the world to do with our actual argument, but I didn't know that was something I carried until we had an argument, and then I was so stirred up about it for a really long time. And then, so you see how we don't even know what we brought in, and we're so triggered by our spouse. And someone said to me one time, and I love this question, what's really going on? So when you're in an argument, wait, that's a strong response. Let's ask the Lord what's really going on there. So listening prayer, as we've said, has just been so life-changing. I don't mean to talk about it so much, but literally it's saved our marriage and so life-changing. And it's for you to be able to pass on to your children. So, your kids get in the car after school and they're crying, and someone said something to them, for you to know right there how to say, hey, what's really going on? Let's ask the Lord about that. And to be able to help your preschoolers now, so they're not, I mean, we're all take things into our marriage, but they have the tools to process later. Yeah.
What else? Is there anything else that's pressing for anyone that you'd like to talk about for a couple minutes?
I had a family direction question. Aaron and I were married all of 3 months before we found out we were pregnant. It sounds like you guys can relate. And then y'all did it back to back. We're trying not to go back to back with May. At this rate, we might, I don't know. But I feel like the pressure is, now that we've had this child, we have a 6-month-old son, Henry. He's the bomb. I love him to death. But the pressure that I feel is like, all right, course is set. Like, you had your baby. Now you guys are like this family unit, and you need to work your job, and Erin needs to find her thing, and now just have the kids and kind of do it. Well, we're still like young and kind of dreaming and hearing from the Lord and wanting to be obedient and follow Him, kind of like on a mission, you know? So I just kind of want to see what that was like for you guys. So you're young, you got 2 kids, and then you're an artist, and you thought you married a football player, and he wasn't. So what does that look? You know what I mean? So softball.
I asked, a friend of mine was on staff at North Point. He was helping lead like 722 and all stuff back in the day, the young adult stuff. Then he moved to Chicago to plant a church like in the inner city. And I was talking to him a couple years ago in Chicago, walking around the city, and I was like, good grief, Jared, like, this seems dangerous. Like, they're, you know, around gangs, I mean, shootings, crime is not Alpharetta. And I was like, are you ever nervous, like, for bringing your kids here? And I'll never forget what he said. He was like, I'd be way nervous about doing something God didn't tell us to do than doing what He has told us to do. You know, he said, this, for me, like, following God is the best place to be. That's what he was talking about. And I was like, good grief. And I think he's right, you know. And so there isn't another you guys. Like, God's got something in you that's not in Jeremy and Andrea. There's something in you that I think that's why we have to hear from the Lord. That's why we have to keep searching the Lord, because there's a place where your river and Aaron's river intersect, and it becomes more than 1 + 1. That there's actually an exponential implication. That's kind of where we're at now in our marriage, and we love it because for a long time, I was doing my thing, Meg was doing her thing, and now almost exhaustively we do our thing. Every now and then I have to go out and do my thing, or she does her thing. But for the most part, what we do together is so much stronger than what either of us would do individually. And so I think just asking the Lord, like, and really I want to go back to one thing that I mentioned earlier about to fight for how you can help your spouse's dreams come true. To figure out what are your own dreams, to be able to communicate those things. I mean, and no matter how silly they might be, you know, like, it is a dream for me to be good enough at surfing that I can surf a stand-up barrel. So I'm in a gigantic wave where I could stand like this and not even touch the top of it. That's a dream for me. So I'm working towards this, you know, but that means, like, I have to go for a week at a time.
Surfing trips and stuff.
I have to take on my CrossFit. But I don't know why that's in there, but that's in there. And Megan has these dreams, and so she sacrifices so that I can kind of go after some of these dreams, whether they're like significant ministry dreams or completely, you know, ancillary, just personal, funny fantasies. She's fighting for me. For me to go do that is her taking up a big burden and carrying it so that I can go chase a little bit of a dream. So any ways that we can do this stuff together, fight for each other, instead of fight each other, just be really, really helpful. So I don't think you have to just be pressed into a mold. I do think you have to respect the boundaries of the season that you're in, though. Is that helpful?
Yeah, and one thing I would just add, we took a year off from life here and lived at the beach for a year. But it was so life-changing for us in the sense that we left everything that was normal, Gwinnett County family, and we went somewhere else. And we just spent all that time saying, Lord, what do you want? Who are we? What do you want for us? And coming back to Gwinnett County, your kids have to be in all the select sports and this lifestyle, and you need to do this and the, you know, work, whatever we live in here, which I love. But coming back into it, we had to really evaluate, wait, who are we? Like, our family's different from the family next door. We're just who, like Aaron was saying, we're who we are. So just continually being in check. Like, make sure you're not living your neighbor's life, you know? So continually asking yourself, and it changes, seasons change. But it's been hard at times when all the friends, you know, all my boys' friends are blah, 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 and we just can't do that, or we don't feel like we're supposed to do that, because, you know, we have people in our home all the time, and we do something kind of different than most people around us. But that's what we're called to do, and there's such life in that. But it does feel like a sacrifice, and sometimes it feels like people don't understand us, and we're going against the grain. But just making sure you're in touch with what the Lord has for your family. Yeah.
Okay, so how are you guys navigating a society, like in your marriage and in your family, that is constantly plugged in? Like, I'm talking, you're comparing your friends on Facebook to yourself, the TV's on in the background, you know what I mean? It's like, and it's on in your neighbor's house, and your kids want to watch this show that their friend sees, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right.
how are you navigating a life where you can find meaning amongst all of that? You know,
Yeah.
just turn it all off, but, you know, it's hard to do.
Yeah, that's a good question. We're definitely just navigating it. What would you say, Ben?
I don't know what I think about our connectivity these days. It's the biggest point of disagreement with our kids. Social media and time online and phones. And I'm asking God for wisdom in that right now.
Yeah, so we didn't give our kids, our older kids didn't have phones until 7th and 8th grade, which I feel like maybe that's late for some people, but I was just so thankful to not give it to them until like at school they had to have it for whatever. So I think just stuff like that was important for us, like to not give them accounts, Instagram or Facebook or whatever, until they were 13 or whatever. So just holding it off as long as possible, I really feel like was very helpful. But then the other thing is just we're just in it. So we're just like, I know passwords. I'm on those accounts all the time. You know, so right now our older two don't have Snapchat, Instagram, or Safari on their phones. But of course they get them on the computer, and so we I know all their passwords, and we talk about it. We look at these comments together. Why did you think they said that? Why did you say that? Why did you like that picture? Whatever. So I think, again, I don't know the answer, but I just know that we're not naive and we're not ignoring it. So we're just trying to be as wise as we can to just be very aware. And, as we've taken away things from them, but it's the only way we communicate. You don't get it. You're so the oldest generation, or whatever they tell us all the time. But that's fine. That's fine. You don't get it, but this is a privilege, that you get these things. And for our younger guys, like even on our Tuesday night dinners, sometimes, we need to all be on iPads or whatever because we're in like a small house and it's just what works. But we try, to say, okay, when we get together, let's don't do that. Or let's don't take your electronics to your friend's house, or just whatever. Give your kids time limits, and it's a privilege and those kind of things. But I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like electronics. That's how I feel.
That was hard. Like, we'll be having TV on. My daughter will be playing on something, and I realized after 30 minutes, my husband and I both been sitting on our phones the whole time. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Yeah, we don't allow like phones at the dinner table, and we have a charging station, so everything has to be plugged in and in this location at this time. We try to like at least eliminate things like that. But yeah, I think what we want to do is help them know how to use things and then be wise with Covenant Eyes. Or if y'all heard that service a couple Sunday nights ago, it was awesome. Here, just talking about different, like there's the circle, or different things that you put parameters around what your kids can have access to in electronics. Those things are super important.
Well, let me just encourage you, especially moms, for a second, because I know that we're done. I was reading just the other day with my boys before school about where Jesus feeds the 5,000. And you know the story. I mean, if you've been around church, like this little kid has, little fish and bread. And I bet that that kid had that lunch because his mom gave it to him. You know? And she had no idea what she was doing that day when she prepared her son's lunch. She didn't know what God was going to do. It was just another lunch for her. But it marked history. And so just to encourage you, moms, like even in the ordinariness of getting waffles in the morning or spaghetti at night, just not to lose the perspective of the glory of God in all of it and the potential of what God could do through every bit of it. I was also, I think it might be in the same chapter, I can't remember, but where Jesus says, if anyone has done so much as give a child a cup of water, surely they will not lose their reward. I used to always think about that in terms of the mission field, you know, like the compassion kids and the kids with flies on their faces and all this stuff, and it's like heartbreaking stuff. And now I'm like, my own little kids, like, you thirsty again? Like, how much water do you need? You know? But to see, like, these kids, we get to serve our own kids, you know? And I think in the kingdom of God, there's as much rejoicing over serving your kids as serving kids on the other side of the world. So just to keep perspective and to not grow weary in doing good. Okay?
Can I pray for us, or are you going to do that?